Good evening and welcome to Cohoes City School District Board of Education meeting tonight, February 12th. If you could please just stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Here.
For the record, call the meeting to start at 6:02 p.m. Emergency exit here on the side is one that came in, out front. And can we please have a roll call?
Mrs. Geller,
Here.
Mrs. Snyder,
Here.
Mrs. Gendron, here, Mrs. Paradis,
Here.
Mr. Jaros,
Here.
and Mr. Jackson.
At this time, I'll turn it over to Superintendent O'Shea for our district reports.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. So we're going to start off the evening with our capital project update. And I think tonight, Mr. Collins, are you the lucky one to start us off presenting my comments from Turner Construction?
Yes, I'm the lucky one today, so filling in for Patty, so hopefully I can fill those shoes best I can. Just some updates where we are, from where we came from to where we are now. Phase one, as we know, was Lansing roof, pad site, playgrounds, elevators. That work is complete. We've got the elevator project, one item left, the Harmony Hill elevator. It's due in this week, putting it in next week. We just need confirmation that they have the. That's phase one. Phase two, which has worked with Lansing, Harmony Hill, Van Skype, middle school here, high school auditorium. Some of the things that we do that you've seen, exterior facade, and fencings, window screens. I won't say them all. It's kind of information that it's already been out there. At middle school, since we're here, library was painted. It looks great. I think over the past couple of weeks, we've gotten the main entry, the contract on the main entry plaster all patched and painted. I saw that coming in. That looks great. And then the high school, the big athletic field was done, and then we're getting into the roofs and skylights, and some of the corridor paving was completed. This is currently progress work as well as the work that's coming, and we'll call it part of our phase two work, finishing out the rest of the summer. The phase two work right now in progress that's happening after hours. A middle school fire alarm, high school fire alarm will resume back in the spring, but middle school fire alarm is really going on right now with the rest of the fire alarm work to resume in the summertime. High school fire alarm, their contractors, I would say probably 95% complete because it's just it's internal. High school softball field is, I think they were back in Sunday today trying to get the dugouts buttoned up. But the high school softball field will be ready for springtime start. Upcoming work that we'll start to see over the summer. I think the biggest thing, just for jump right down to the high school, is going to be the science labs. That's the biggest single piece of work. Now, that's not the only thing being done at the high school. We've got parking, the road, entrance road that runs up the Harmony Hill that'll be done. Also be doing the baseball field over. They'll be doing the work which includes the field and the dugouts. And then there's the elevators at Abram Lansing, the middle school elevator and the high school elevator will also be active this summer. So with that, I don't know if there's just a couple other things that we just want to be with some potential change orders that we're working through with the prime contractors at various schools. Harmony Hill drainage and at the playground. To name one, there's some science room, high school casework modifications, and some carpet replacements at the middle school library. And some small minor things that just get pricing from the prime contractors to make decisions on us potentially.
Mike, if I could just add something. So Laura and her team have been working on a plan for the location of the science rooms because the work is scheduled to not be completed until October. So, and then summer programming this year, our TSL and our SUNY tutoring program will be at Harmony Hill Elementary because that's also going to be our primary kitchen for the summer because of the work at the high school. And high school classes will likely take place at the middle school. And we're exploring some virtual options as well. So we have all those plans well underway and we'll delineate them as it gets closer.
Can I just ask the phase two updates, the in-progress work, just for clarity and, you know, making sure that we're communicating well, all of these fire alarm that are in progress, we currently have functional fire alarms in each of these buildings. We are looking to replace those with new units, but there are functional units in each of the building at this.
Right, so if you walk through the high school right now, you'll see almost like two smoke detectors next to each other. One's the active system, one's the new system. The system's not online, the system's active and functioning. That swap over will happen instantaneously. The old one will down to the new one. So there will always be.
Great, thank you.
So I think that gets us to turn it over to Paul Nicholson, CSR.
Hello, everyone. I'm Paul Nicholson, CSR. See you all again. So part of the presentation, it's part of the 2022 capital project. It's excess fund or extra monies. The budget of roughly $800,000, which means basically receive $800,000 figure. So we talked with the administration, we came up with scope of work. The priority scope is expanding high school, for the staff and student lots, and identified as a health and safety issue. And also improvements to baseball, do the fencing, which was excluded previously, and baseball install, okay, and also improvements. Kitchen in the high school, which has been prone to flooding kitchen. So the schedule for that, finalizing documents now, and it's coming month. And contracting for construction for some. It's like a little bit smaller, just to get an example, where civil work occurs. So the drainage, breathing improvements, the back block, either paving from the circle, back to maintenance areas, the two lots, the student parking lots, included fencing, back by the baseball purpose field. On purpose field, includes a higher section of fence that become baseball at that area. And then the batting cage, which is a flatter area, third base line, the baseball field. Base of that will there. And then the scoreboards. So under the current contract, we question pricing scoreboards for the baseball and softball. To get rid of that, there's safety concerns with those. And baseball, softball, and other things as well. Any questions about that scope?
Just while we have that picture up, can you clarify what is getting paved as part of phase two
Right.
versus what's the additional?
Yeah, good question. So as part of phase two, our contract is the whole loop around the main parking lot and then the roadway up Madeline Hickey Way, all the way up to about where the turn off for parking is. This loop was paved recently. Before last. That's.
So this doesn't change the current traffic pattern at the high school?
No, it's no reinvigorating of circulation, parking. That's right.
Okay. Can I ask about the fence removal? Like, so, okay, so some of this, the excess funds, some of this I recall as part of the initial scope of work, but once we started receiving bids and they were higher than what we had expected, they were removed from the initial scope of work. So some of this looks familiar to me as far as, you know, what decisions have been made. Some of this doesn't look familiar to me. And so my question is, the fence removal you're saying is a health and safety issue. What would that be? What is health and safety related?
Health and safety on the fence, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, so parts of the existing fence, notably along closer to the high school, fence is actually curled up. And so there's numbers, sharp edges on it. It's the athletes are running on the field.
does that include any work for what had been existing prior to what was put there now? So there was a fence there many years ago, Joe, I don't know if you remember, there was a fence there. There have been issues in the past where metal has come up from that space, from the old fence. Does this include any kind of excavation of that area to ensure that there's no metal at all there? Because at this point, the fence was not, you know, I understand that it's a safety issue now, but it was also, you know, presenting itself as a barrier for some of the issues that were not addressed when the new fence was installed. Is that making sense?
I think it is. So your concern is if the new contractors come in and they do fence removal or fence replacing, they making sure that all these buried pieces or pieces.
Yes.
Or were you saying there was fence there previously?
There was fence there previously that wasn't properly removed. Right. And from time to time, we have heard that there have been pieces of metal that have come up through the ground because it wasn't done properly in the first place. I just don't know if that is part of the consideration going into removing this, because it did serve as kind of a barrier or a block from any of that. I don't recall there being any extensive work put into making sure that all of those parts were removed. You know, I'm not saying that this was put in place because there were issues there. It was just a matter of happenstance that it wasn't taken care of right the first time, and there were some issues that arose from it.
Yeah, this scope doesn't specifically address a previous version of fencing that was removed, but it can. If there is some footings or, you know, posts that are still in the ground, we can pull that out. This is really that one section of fence is in bad condition and they don't need it, right? So it's been said, we don't need this fence. We don't want to replace it, because the first thought was, should we replace this damaged fence? And then, no, we don't need it. So take that piece out.
Okay.
So.
And I don't know if it had ever been addressed. It's definitely been some time since we've had that experience, you know, but there was a fence there at one time. It wasn't taken out right.
That's the one. This point, it was put back 30 yards. At that point, there was some old fence too.
Okay. And then as far as the scoreboards, you said these are going to be movable scoreboards?
That's what's been discussed in
Okay.
this report, to have a stationary scoreboard, that way they're more flexible for use.
But that will be both for the baseball and the softball fields?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think as we talk about portable scoreboards. The only real question is where are we putting them when they're not used?
Yeah,
Yeah, they're on a wheeled cart, like, to your point, you have to put them somewhere, roll them away somewhere and have to put them somewhere where they can charge, right? They're portable, so they can charge.
So this new paving, sorry to be on this point, I just want to make sure I have clarity, but this new paving at the high school for both of these lots provides us no additional space and no change in the current traffic flow. It's just milling and paving,
It's just bringing.
restriping obviously, but not providing us any additional space.
It's not.
Concern. I mean, it's concerning because we already max out on space, any of our events, and this is not, we haven't even been able to offer, statewide events or anything that, of bringing like many schools into our district. So, to spend the money, we obviously need to spend the money to do something with that area. I think the milling and paving is a necessity. It's, certainly Madeline Hickey Way all the way up and through the circle at the high school. My concern is that some of that space, we're already using as overflow parking, and that's a safety issue. And that's not necessarily, being brought into consideration in these plans. And I guess my point is that, we're spending money on solving a small problem that potentially has larger impacts. If we're spending the money to mill and pave this area, but it still isn't solving any of our space issues, it just feels like a little bit of a waste of money, or resources. And I don't mean to, put it that way, but I've been at the high school when there's been big events, and that's only our community and only the other team that they're playing. We're looking to have these facilities be state of the art and to be able to, offer different, opportunities for tournaments and to be able to host things. And we're already maxed out on parking space. So just want to put it out there that that's a concern from me, at least.
I don't have a real good answer.
Yeah,
Limited by real estate, right? With parking, unless you add more paving to what you already have, you're not gonna pick up additional parking space. That's something we, yeah.
I
So
mean,
we're
the
gonna
green
be,
space that's right past, right past the current parking lot. I don't know how many spaces that would potentially offer, but that's kind of unusable space. I don't know if it's there for drainage purposes or, what the reason behind it is, but
It's just that patch of trees there with the path. That's a decent area. But maybe the budget, it would hit harder to just repave than obviously, prep an entire spot for
right.
a new. I'm sure the budget hit would be a lot higher.
so some of the
Great.
things we're going to talk about in the future are some referendums and future capital projects too, but I think we could we should ask you to examine that area that's being discussed to look at it.
Yeah, I think the way we were gonna, so this work, the intention here is because it's, it's the monies that we currently have in this project. We
Right.
want to get it done this summer. So the intention here would be to try to get this out to bid. But that one lot that you're talking about that has some adjacent areas, we might be able to look at that quickly and see if we can reconfigure it a little bit to gain a few more spots. I think the key piece here is the area around the back, because the drainage in the back is something, I think we had that as the base bid, right? And we're bidding potentially the parking lots as alternates. So we could do a couple of things. If we're not happy with the revised design solution, we could not take that alternate for that one lot that we're milling and paving and say, okay, we're going to reconfigure this, we're going to fix it later, and we could just do the other parts, because we don't have to accept all the alternates. So that's why the bid would be broken up in pieces. So that's always an option as well. If we're not happy with that lot, just don't do it now.
I mean, This is my personal opinion.
No, it makes
This is,
sense, 'cause-
you know, I'm just speaking my experience of being there. You know, we're being presented with, like, this is what we're doing. Obviously, there have been discussions leading up to this. It's, like I said, some of this was included in the initial conversations and some of it wasn't. And so, you know, like I said, I just don't want to spend money on something that already isn't working. Where if we need to find potential solutions, does it not make more sense for us to further that conversation than to just fix what's already broke?
So the
So-
purpose of, so we discussions at facilities meetings, because that's the first look, and now we're at the board level. So the purpose of this is to be able to ask these questions now, give input, you know, before any of this is finalized. So I'll take.
Can I ask one more question? There's a set of bleachers that are right behind that little strip of fence that's being removed. What's happening to the bleachers?
So those features are this project, so. Or it's decided. to be- All right, so then next we started talking about a new project. Potentially for. Intricate garden
Does this fence, does
transfer capital from this and that's money's already set aside. So using that money will let you additional increases. However, that 2 million hasn't been decided on what particular. So some of the processes to kind of figure out what that. And then it prior to it going to public. Board of Education, task force resolutions, that has to happen. These 45 days prior. So thinking backwards, it's the vote, it's middle of March for that resolution. Which is why we're. It use sauce and capital reserve dollars, we say it's really approved, time would start, it would get submitted for rest. We did. Steps. Any questions about that? All right, so then getting into what this scope would be. So it's utilizing that capital reserve to discuss these folks thinking mostly at school, and also talking to anything. So replacing streetlights on street access now. That would include poles, pads, and I'll talk about as part of the athletic. Nice field, yes. These new equipment, again, where you store that. So talk about a storage shed for the equipment. Location of that storage shed, I'll get it next slide. It's sort of in the courtyard area back by the cafeteria. So as part of the storage shed, it makes sense to take care of some drainage issues back there. Absolutely. Then another safety issue is listen to the higher priority is replacing high school auditorium house lighting with newer equipment. It's easier to maintain. And then, as I mentioned, walking. So none of this is, it's just being talked about conceptual.
Can you provide some background on the replacement of streetlights over by the high school in Harmony?
Yeah.
Like I walk that area and I would consider that the best lit, best working set of lights in the district.
I would second that. Yeah, I walk that. Oh, I mean, there are obviously is maybe some cap pieces that maybe aren't on perfectly, but I think every one of those lights does work.
Yeah.
There's nothing hanging. I don't know. I like the thought, but that's gotta be a huge ticket item for a budget. But maybe we can look at that closer. I don't know. But yeah, those seem to me.
There's a number of the bases that have kind of shifted and sunk in the soils. That was one of the reasons we started.
Okay.
Start getting into places more. Kind of looked at as it makes sense to replace that whole string, but you know, that's something that's really,
Are there a couple poles that around the parking lot that are broken off?
Yeah.
So there are a couple that are missing. The poles have been knocked down.
All right.
It's just a concrete.
Yeah, but this doesn't look like it includes the parking lot poles. This is just the roadway.
access path to,
Oh, no, the ones over by Columbia are trash. I agree.
Right.
Yes, definitely.
Mhm.
go look at that one. And then the rendering. Yellow box, storage.
I like that.
Yeah.
Drainage to sort of hard surface. Need a way to access an area with we have access path. But that could either be permanent access roads or access to the space where it can be short that structure. So that's something to talk about. Yeah. Access road.
I just have a couple of questions, just because I wasn't at the facilities meeting. I apologize. Where's the speaker system for the field?
Okay, so that was issued as a series pricing. So, we threw the pricing.
Okay, I just don't see it in any of the pages.
And one of the change,
Hmm. No.
PJ, can you go back to the
Slide 6.
slide?
Item number 3.
Oh, okay, alumni field sound system. Thank you for that. And then my other question was, I've only been to one game at the new field. It's beautiful, and sorry that like I'm just bringing this up, but this is our first time meeting since everything. The flagpole, was that originally where the flagpole was? Did somebody decide to put it there? Because it's very hard to see when you're standing in the courtyard. Like everyone that we were there was all like, where's the flagpole? There's no light on it. It's behind something. Every single person.
I think there's a light, but it's very, it's like low at the base of the
The
pole.
light was replaced, it came with a light that was mounted to the top of the pole, so all the light kind of. The flag justice, so the new lights were installed, mounted off the scoreboard directing up towards the flags, that's.
Can you point to the flag on the plan book?
Was that where the existing flagpole was and you just continued to put it there, or did someone really plot that out?
I think the issue is that the scoreboard, the scoreboard is in front of it, so. you can't-
It's horrible. I mean, just saying, every single person.
I think the flag got moved with the scoreboard, right? Because
Right, because the flagpole is on your side.
So I think the scoreboard was moved for the visibility, and the scoreboard and the flagpole probably came with it. We hadn't heard that till now, so we could.
Well, we haven't met, so, and I wasn't at the facilities meeting, sorry. So, so yeah, that was the other thing. But then I also, I do want to go with Margaret's point where she was talking about, you know, the parking and stuff like that. I know that you're saying that it is a health and safety issue and stuff like that, but I mean, there is a huge problem with parking, and we also have had meetings, you know, at the facilities meetings about the traffic problems and stuff like that. So if you are looking at doing the paving and replacing things, I think you need to address the issues that were brought up before about, you know, the traffic issues and the parking issues before you just go and plow, you know, mill and repave and stuff like that. So that is definitely a concern. And so I would also think that like, you know, the new storage facility for holding all of the brand new equipment that we are, you know, spending a lot of money on would probably be a little bit more of a priority than, you know, the paving, I think,
Yeah.
in aspects of that.
Point, the reason we couldn't bring the storage building advanced, that's sort of, it's a separate thing. It doesn't really fall into the lines of the project,
Mm-hmm.
a new structure.
Your current voter authorization wouldn't cover.
Wouldn't cover the new building being placed. Okay.
Can you clarify the health and safety portion of the paving? Because that's about the water in the high school. Could you just give some clarification about that piece too? About why that piece behind the high school needs?
Yeah. So in the area behind the high school, the drainage just isn't working. So the scope of this really is to reconfigure that, provide a new concrete drainage swale, or gutter rather, to carry the water as it comes off the hill. So we can get that water out of there and repiping everything back to your existing subsurface drainage system.
Mhm.
We also have the way that the area is kind of pitched, some of the water is draining into the electric service and coming in.
Right.
So, so the idea is to remedy that as well, when we're back there, so.
So that piece is the priority and then the other.
Yeah, that's why we kind of said that's the base bid, so when we bid this, we definitely want to get that work done. The remainder of the work, as your pavement deteriorates, you get potholes and stuff like that, so, you know, obviously that's a tripping hazard, right? So we want to try to you know, fix that as we can, but that's why we were thinking that back lot is the health and safety.
Oh, I totally understand about the back lot. I'm just talking about the front lots.
Yeah, and that's just due to the condition of it. You know, you've been patching it, you know, spot patching it every year, and then water gets under there, pops that off. So it's just ready to be. Now, I totally understand because we looked at many concepts
Of rerouting the traffic and, yeah.
So yeah, we're definitely aware of that issue. But we can revisit that.
Right. So we talked about 2025. So then there's 2026 capital reserve. Be part of 2026. So construction. We focus on district-wide HVAC systems. As part of that preparation and audit, the buildings, identify spaces that have air conditioning currently. And identify systems that require retro conditioning replacements. So that's very much in the beginning. It's the district building condition survey of that year's bill. So that.
And is this, this HVAC, I feel like this conversation's a new conversation, is part of this to go along with the legislation that was passed, with the heat.
And ACs.
The legislation saying that once it gets to be.
Kids can't do that.
To close, as part of the audit, we also, and we're gonna talk more, next week, you know, doing some checks over June to see what rooms are reaching close to that, and, you know, so kind of broaden the discussion in terms of the audit to help us plan.
And does summer 2027 put us in line with when these things need to happen? Or is it happening now and we just need to respond to what we're able to?
Yep, it starts next school year. So this would help us to address a long-term plan and working with the principals, you know, on short-term and locations. The audit will help us in terms of the district now. Except for future. We can discuss that more in depth at a meeting because there's definitely a lot to
There is.
and yeah. And Scott, we can talk to.
In terms of projects, budget take out, what's the entrance sign at Harmon School? So the existing eastern sign is deteriorated. Current contractor can remove the old sign and turn over the free gas to the district. So you'll have that. But in terms of replacement sign, district will be taking. Well, the stairway, in additional items, this seems to be the other evolving. So that's still.
So the discussion at the facilities committee meeting was, and this will be more of a part of our budget discussions when we talk about facilities. Walkthroughs were done in all 5 buildings, meetings with administration, facilities director, Stacy, head day custodian. So we have a list of identified needs throughout the district, looking at short-term budgeting, long-term budgeting. It became a entrenched part of our planning, a few years ago. And so more to follow on this through budget.
Talk about potential future capital project items as well, or sort of like some of these that come up in previous discussions from the 2022 project. And so they're still being tracked. The environments for Lansing, cafeteria innovation, Pittsburgh. Cafeteria, special needs. School. Additional bathroom renovations, plumbing and drainage, school tracking.
And this is, we would go through the whole, need assessment and receiving input and looking at other areas too. This is just so we don't lose sight.
High school parking. Are there other questions or things we should keep?
I guess my question is just kind of related to the budget. We have put some aside for capital project. We have funded this current, these current phases on our own without going to taxpayers. Is that the plan for the next phases through 2027? Or is there an expectation that at some point we will need to go out to the community to help support these initiatives?
So we funded 2 million of the current phase 2. We talked about tonight, the additional 2 million, which we talked about what the priorities might be, what they might look like. That'll require voter authorization this May. So that's all funded without borrowing. We need the audit to identify the scope of the problem for HVAC. That's a very expensive project. So we don't really know what the scope is yet for me to say. We could do it through a capital reserve a little bit at a time. I hope that's what we will do, but I don't know the scope of the audit and I don't know the numbers yet to say that with 100% certainty. That is the plan if it's feasible. We might need to break it up over an extended period of time. We might need to focus on one building at a time. It depends on what our problems are and what the estimates are. We will need to borrow for the future projects. That would be something that we would go through this process all over again, and that would be money that we would borrow as debt starts to retire. So the hope is that we could fund the HVAC through a reserve process, but again, until we know the full scope, I can't say that with certainty at this point.
Anybody else? Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
I've put a lot of work into this. Don't mean to be a Debbie Downer on asking questions. I'm hoping that we can do a little bit more investigations with, the paving piece. That we can make sure we get the best bang out of our buck. Would be greatly appreciated.
And the fence.
And the fence.
Thank you.
It's good. I was watching on my house.
So at a recent meeting, we had a discussion around cell phones. We had a discussion around cell phones. I want to thank Principal Tarlow, Assistant Principal Bratt, and their team. I know Mr. Charlone was one of them for, visiting a school that has successfully implemented this model, also for meeting with the vendor. And this is an informational beginning of the discussion with the board. And I'd like to call up Laura to present.
So we visited Troy a couple weeks ago. It was pretty informative, and they're roughly double the size of Cohoes High School. They have about 1,250 students. We have about 600. So we went for arrival at 8 o'clock, and we thought, well, let's see how this all works and see what happens. And it was smooth as could possibly be, and our minds were blown, and wow, this is really exciting. This is a controversial topic. It's become a political topic. It's an opinion-based topic. So none of this is really just my opinion. This is really based on observation from what we saw during our meeting. We've been through iterations of it's our job to teach kids how to use technology properly, and locking it up doesn't do that, to, oh my God, if I see another cell phone, I'm going to lose my mind. We've been everywhere in between on that spectrum. So a couple things that are important takeaways from us. There's a couple of quick informational videos for you to see, because I could talk and talk, so cut me off when you've had enough. But the big thing is, it's important to realize it's not a punishment, that this phone process and policy is about empowering our youth to take back their mental health, about owning their academics, about interpersonal skills and relationships, about fostering cultures and environments that are positive to learn in, where people are communicative and speaking and sharing. When every kid, the way Troy City School District and the high school did it, was they had 3 lanes, like the airport, when you entered every day. And remember, they have buses, so kids are getting dropped off in bigger chunks, they're all coming in. You have your yonder pouch, and you're gonna see what that looks like in a minute. And you get in line, you put your phone in it, you seal it, and you have a great day. I don't have a phone, which is mostly the lying line. And then they
Nope, none of mine will have cell phones while they're in this district.
So mostly the line. And they had actually a couple security, they have a big security program there, so again, these are different environments, but they actually just want the kids, yep, you're good to go. If you lie, there's a disciplinary consequence. And I have my phone, but I don't have my pouch. So then they have a process for that, put an envelope with your name, no problem. It was quick. It was seamless. Now this started at the beginning of this school year. They did a rollout in 2 days. They did assemblies. They shared with me that the rollout was very much part of inviting the police department in and having the chief speak with the superintendent of the schools, speak with the school board. And why? Because one of the number one things parents say is, I need in this day and age to get a hold of my kid right away in an emergency. And so there's a lot of research around that and why that's unsafe. Jamming up the 911 lines, sharing this information. And so those aren't great reasons. So, but again, these are big topics of discussion. I think the purpose of tonight is to just share with you what these look like, answer questions you might have. There was 3 things we looked at Troy. We looked at their phone-free school policy. We looked at their e-hall pass, electronic hall
policy, which is really cool, and program and service that they have. And then we looked at what they're doing with security, because they're years ahead of us with having security and relationships with SROs and just they're a bigger school, different resource pool and how they use things. So hopefully the technology works. I tried to embed a couple of videos. EJ, help me out if this goes really wrong.
Educators around the world are seeing the damaging effects of phones on student engagement, social development, and mental health. So social health have been linked to many of the district's recent problems, cases of anxiety, depression. In an effort to crack down on cell phone usage, the district piloted these magnetic locking bags called Yonder, a basic solution for generation in the midst of mental health crisis. Yonder was the established leader in creating phone-free schools. For over 10 years, our products and program have allowed students to experience the focus, creativity, and relief that comes from our phone-free school day. At Freedom Center School, they place their phone on their side of the pouch. They close and secure the pouch, keeping it with them throughout the day. When leaving school, students tap the pouch with unlocking keys to retrieve the phone. Yonder is used by millions of students every day across 26 countries. Our school partners report having more teaching time in the classroom, improved student safety and wellness, better student engagement, student behavior, and academic performance. Creating phone-free schools is a community initiative. Our comprehensive program provides support to our school partners from start to finish with step-by-step guidance, communication materials, policy development, and proven expertise to ensure everyone understands the difference between phone-free education.
It's a way to see kids come to school and not have to worry about that every day, or them being bullied by someone else on social media.
It was kind of, I thought I knew at first, but then I saw like the difference between like my old school and this school.
I see more people like interacting rather than people. Especially they are way more engaged, more happier.
Small kid spaces again.
Yes, again, oh shit. Cell phones are our number one referral this year. Second to that is insubordination. So they're probably all the same thing. You know, assistant principal brought our dean of students, our team, we spent a lot of time with cell phone stuff. It's not the end of the world, but it takes instructional time away. We know there's been filming of things that are inappropriate, and come meet me here, and kids will always find a way around. This isn't a foolproof system. You could put a fake phone in the bag, but what it does is it creates an expectation of a phone-free school. So it's very black and white. You're caught with your phone, you know that you've violated what the expectations are. I don't need to go through in detail. EJ, I don't know if this is going to replay that video again. There's a lot of talking points, and I have sheets that I can give you information, happy to email anything, but there's just a lot of data, and I don't need to read it all to you about the performance and how things go. We ran into a former Cohoes student in Falls of Troy High and said, hey, it's good to see you, buddy. What do you think? Well, I hated it at first, but what we noticed right away was currently in the morning when you drop your teenager off to the high school, it takes them a little bit to wake up. They have to have their dunk and they have to walk through the door a little bit, and then they have to check their phone. There's no talking really in the morning. It's very quiet because everybody's looking at their phone as they walk to class. The halls were loud. Everybody was talking and communicating. And that young adult shared with me that really liked the idea of not worrying about somebody taking his picture when he's in class and posting it without, or making fun of him, or having to worry about checking social media going off all day, just notifications. Because the time on task, it gets you to get back into your lesson and do things. The second thing I want to share, is just a quick, I can't answer any calls about that. Second thing we observed was the securely, it's an e-hall pass system, and it's all done electronically. There's no more paper passes. It gets you a ton of data. How many times was your kid out of class? How much class time did they potentially miss? One of the, I love the contact polarity. What a great marketing term. Contact polarity, meaning I do not go along with this kid. Don't put me in the hall with them. But they should not be in the hall together at any point for anything. Contact polarity, they go to put their number in. Nope, you can't go out in the hall right now. So they have a very robust security team, as I mentioned, but there's some things that can be replicated. Mini iPads, it's got a little armband on it. Everybody has one in the hall. Johnny's been out for the bathroom. He's been missing for 7 minutes. Where is he? You have a fire drill. You're running out of the building quick. You're grabbing your paper attendance. Has anybody found this person? We can't account for this child. There's an emergency. Where are they? Once they've been out for 7 minutes, their name goes from green to yellow. Once they've been out for 10 minutes, it goes to red. So it's all timed. It helps you identify who's missing out of the classroom. The teachers don't have to stop teaching at any point because the kiosk, every teacher in our school has a Chromebook, and our school district has a Chromebook set up in the back of the room. Kids come late to school, they put in their number, go sit down, check, I'm here. I need to go to the bathroom, go put in your number. Here's your 3 options. If you're on the 3rd floor, you go to the 3rd floor bathroom. Can I go to the 2nd floor bathroom? Nope, you're on the 3rd floor. Go to the 3rd floor bathroom. So it gives you can predetermine what you want to do. You can even predetermine, we're going to let kids out 4 times a day. Beyond that, maybe they need a medical pass, maybe they need something else, particularly for your kids who are abusing the system. So it does a lot of things. It's much more robust. Short video on that I just want to play quick.
As a K-12 school, safety is always top of mind. The official using paper all access. Start an emergency. Not knowing are constantly through service behaviors. Causing valuable instructional plans slip away and lead to poor academic performance. Fear not, there's a modern solution that makes managing call passes a breeze. Introducing Security Pass, the all-in-one digital call pass system designed for K-12 schools. With Security Pass, you'll know the environment which students are all their class. You can also monitor schools' essential and essential values by keeping an eye on past trends throughout the school year. Here's how Pass works. The student creates a leave request on their device. Their teacher can request and pass. Once approved, the student's name, destination, reason for departure, and whether the time of the class work approved, and viewable on the dashboard in real time. Security Pass is the total solution for all past situations. Leaders can set excellence, schedule appointments, and keep those student or groups of students apart. The possibilities are endless. Learn how to do it. Just say easy. Security Pass.
The last thing we looked at that I didn't really do a slide on was just their overall security system. Again, much bigger than us, much larger. They have a head of security. They have kiosks in the hall, little security kiosks with the security software on them so that they can constantly be scanning who's where should they be. But they have a really cool like CSI control room. It was really neat. One of the things that stood out to me is they had big TV screens where they could monitor the cameras throughout the district so they can always keep an eye on what's going on. They had somebody that was really good at technology because sometimes our retired law enforcement friends haven't had the opportunity to use a lot of technology when they were in their roles. So if you can get somebody there that's really good at computers, they had somebody monitoring that 24/7. They also had the ability to press a button and put the district in lockdown, put a building in lockdown, get into a PA system, a direct line from their radio to Troy PD if there's a real emergency. So immediate bypass 911, get a hold of Troy. They have an SRO, so it's a little bit of a different model, but they have SROs, safety officers, hall monitors, a very robust. So those were just takeaways. Those are things for us to consider and look at. They all cost a lot of money. And so I think that's what we kind of need to decide and narrow down, philosophically, what do we agree with? What do we want to do? Do we have the full support? Is it a district initiative? They also mentioned that everything they do in the high school is a secondary. So it's middle school, high school. So that when the kids come to the high school, they've been trained at the middle school. It's the expectation. This is what we do. It's not separate and unique. This is how the secondary school operates. So pretty easy flow. Securely Pass is fairly cheap. It's like a $2,000 agreement for the year, plus whatever mini iPads you want to buy for your home monitors.
And, on the last four PJ gave me, they were about $500 a piece-ish, plus whatever the holder is. So again, this is not super expensive. The initial quote that we got for just the high school, which was the 600 yonder pouches plus replacements, plus on-site service support, was around $25,000. So much more expensive, much bigger decision. One of the pros also was, and we heard a lot with our teacher leaders during needs assessment, kids don't bring their Chromebooks to school. They saw an immediate increase in the number of kids that brought their Chromebooks to school because now my phone's locked up all day. And if my parent needs to get hold of me, they can Schoology message me. So more parents are driven to Schoology now to connect with their kids if they need to. And kids kind of organically are bringing their Chromebooks with them to school where they might not right now and have them charged and ready for use. So that was sort of like a side effect of what was going on, so. And that's our summary. Anything else you didn't?
I would say it really just aligns with BLT goals, right? We have been talking about the safety of our kids, Troy, so that they saw a huge decrease in fights. Fights, you know, that as the disciplinarian in the building would be something that, I mean, that's what we're always talking about, right? How do we make our schools safer? And that was one of our goals this year, to decrease the use of cell phones, and it isn't working. What we're doing right now is not working. So we're gonna go back to the drawing, and this is what we're hearing from several districts, it's working.
I was on a Cohoes council principal meeting the other morning, a virtual meet, and every school is talking about the same thing. I mean, it could be, we're told to do this from the state, so it's not much of a decision. And maybe there's some aidable support to go with that. Or it could be, you know, nothing happens with that. It doesn't get the traction and schools are still led to kind of do their own thing. There are plenty of area schools that we could visit. Troy was happy to have us back if we wanted to bring a bigger team to kind of go see what that looks like and see all of this in action. They have a great model going on, but there are other area schools too that we could go to. Bethlehem, LaSalle, Waterville, just to name a few. So there's other districts we could look at.
I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to go and check this out, you know.
I don't get out
really
fun.
field trip, right?
Mr. Sherlock and Poe.
I think that, you know, safety has certainly become an issue for the board and priority for the board, and making sure that, you know, not only are our kiddos safe, but so our staff. You know, I think that both of these things that you presented tonight could offer us a little bit more in our own ability to control our environment. I don't think that's a bad thing when you're speaking about, you know, I do love what you said though, like empowering students to like take their own education and to really commit to themselves.
Yeah.
Like look at themselves. What am I doing to cause myself to not, you know, maybe participate as much or have those communications, and that social connection that you have at school is so important at that age. So I was going to ask about the middle school because, you know, thinking about it, I feel like it just makes sense. Like kids are already transitioning from a K-5, you know, to a building. They're all coming together. They're switching classes now. Like, I feel like it's a good time to transition. I know that the middle school has a very strong phone away program that they have in place. But like you said, learning it here and then having it be able to kind of just be, this is what we do, I feel like makes sense. You know, the more connections that we can make from, you know, our elementary kiddos and all bringing those three buildings together to, you know, provide similar supports. Same thing with our secondary, whether that's middle school or high school. I know that you're saying that there's an expense to this. You know, I would also point out that there's an expense in our own internal resources to deal with the issues that you guys are dealing with right now.
Suspension of tutoring is very expensive, right? And if we can offset some of that and keep kids in school and mitigate conflict, that's huge.
I mean,
where we need the kids to be.
We've seen an increase in our security budget as it stands right now, but are we just responding to the issues that are coming up, or are we preventing issues from coming up? I think we're reacting to a problem that exists rather than talk about preventing the problem from existing.
These are all proactive solutions. Proactive solutions cost money. There's just no way around it. In speaking with the Troy team and their business official, they spend a ton of money in hopes that they never have to use security.
Yeah.
Our athletic director just messaged me tonight, they're at Troy for a game. He said, oh my God, I feel like I'm at like, you know, a big concert event. Like there's that many security here for a basketball game. But they don't want any issues. They want it to feel safe to community. That school, their school has that same feel when you walk into it. And they're all friendly and they're greeting kids and the kids are high-fiving them. It's a collaborative environment, but there's, you know, you're putting that investment forward for double the kids in the high school. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think they said they had 5 fights the whole school year.
Wow.
Oh.
Pretty good.
None of it's videotaped. It's pretty tough.
Yeah.
Downtown. Right?
Yeah, it is.
I said none of it was videotaped.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, you know, there definitely are some districts that are, you know, this was the first year for Troy, but there are other districts who have been doing this for a little bit. And, you know, they were front runners and getting out there and, you know, trying to eliminate some of the distractions. You know, brother works at Bethlehem, nothing but positive things to say, and they've been doing it for a little bit now. So, you know, I'm not opposed to having conversations, you know, I'm sure our budget committee will have those first, you know, and figuring out where that fits into the grand scheme of things. You know, funny that we literally just had a conversation about our security model and talking about, you know, with more staff, does it make sense for us to designate a lead officer and or, you know, put certain consistencies in place as far as like, this is our program and it's not necessarily like the security team is a team regardless of where they are in the district. So we kind of were just having that conversation and it seems to make sense with what you're presenting to us today. I've heard nothing but good things about the Securely Hall Pass system too. Boston Spa is actually looking at it right now too. So yeah, I think it's great. It's great to have open mind and to feel like we can potentially solve some, you know, problems proactively.
If we did go this route, a couple things they said to consider is your rollout is critical.
Yeah.
A neighboring district took like a month to roll it out at the beginning of the year and it was pretty like loosey-goose, you know, well, we're working on transitioning. They said we did 2 days. We did assemblies for those 2 days and they explained the why, because these are young adults.
Right.
We want to know the why. And it wasn't just because we wanted to be mean and take your phones away. It was data driven. This is why. And then the second thing was the rollout to the community and the collaboration between the police department, the Board of Education, the superintendent of schools, the school leaders, and making sure that they could answer questions for the families that had legitimate concerns and were worried about moving to a phone-free school model. So that customer service and that marketing was at the forefront of the rollout.
I think that's a valid point when talking about doing it at one or the other, middle or high. Margaret mentioned the kids being streamlined, like it starts here and goes all the way through, but it's for the parents too.
Yeah.
If they learn something that they have constant access at the middle school level via a phone in a backpack.
Right.
It's the same scenario. It's harder for them to transition into.
How many siblings do we have? My sister can use the phone in the middle school, but my brother can't at the high school. Now you have equity issues and stuff. So I do think it's a consideration. And I think in talking with the middle school administration that they're very open to a lot of these ideas too.
And I think middle school tends to be that age when parents do start getting phones for the kids. It's that transition.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that it makes sense too.
Except for Mr. Jones.
I guess, you know, things for us to consider is, you know, what needs to be looked at as far as, you know, not only just budgetary implications, how this looks, how we roll it out, but what do we need to do as a board to support decision-making, whether that be reviewing the code of conduct, you know, changing some policies around. But I do feel like, you know, this is a start to that conversation. I wonder if you had any conversations about what adults look like in a school that is a phone-free.
So they make a Velcro yonder pouch for teachers that you can purchase, and you're saying to the teachers, obviously, on your planning period, whatever, your lunch break, do what you need to do, but please model the same thing to the students that we're asking. We're not asking you to lock your phone all day, you're an adult. But if you're texting in the front of the room and you're telling the kids to be off and away, that looks bad, 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 and it's unprofessional. So again, I think it depends on the leadership, but some of the examples they were telling me, they've had to have discussions with staff, maybe even some write-ups with staff who were not complying with that expectation of while you were teaching for that period of time, you should be time on task to focused devices away. Obviously, you have an emergency, that's different, something comes up, but that you're modeling the expectations to the kids. You have the e-secure or the secure hall pass system on your Chromebook in the back of the room. Kids need to go somewhere. You have the classroom phone. If there's an emergency, you need to get hold of somebody. You've got radio and you got security walking around the whole building. So it still felt very safe. And that panic wasn't there with what do I do without my cell phone?
I mean, honestly, I feel like it's kind of a smaller transition, for us in that we do have an off and away policy already that has been established at the middle school for a while. Your BLT has made such gains and had your team supported this 100%. I don't feel like it would be like this big controversial piece for us, but it is good to know that there's an option that can make adults, model for kids at the same time.
And it takes away, from the teacher perspective, the teacher that's uncomfortable, especially with older, bigger kids, to say, hey, put that phone on my desk, or what, in that confrontation, that issue that you're having with that kid that you shouldn't have to get into. You're teaching, you're trying to teach your content, and now you're arguing over a cellular device, an electronic device. So anyway, it just kind of removes that barrier because it's very black and white. It's phone free. It's not what one teacher thinks versus another, and pitting teachers against each other either.
To answer some of your questions, yes, it is being brought up at the budget, it has been brought up at the budget committee and will be an ROI for it. We would be reviewing other districts' codes of conducts that have implemented this to see what the language, definitely more discussions, and then sharing, if we decide to go in this direction, the rollout and the communication plan. There's a lot of FAQs on other district websites that have implemented this, a lot of information there that we can model, but do it our own type.
They sent us older stuff.
So we have a lot.
I think it would be a good idea also if you could find, I don't know how easy it would be, but like a parent to come, if we had, a meeting or something like that with parents here to explain their whole experience with it. Like, yes, I was against it in the beginning, but then, the more and more that like my child is paying attention in class now, his or her scores have increased, or, so that, they're that aspect, so that when, the parents are here, it's not just being told from the administration.
Right.
That, or the teachers that, this is what we need to do or whatever.
Right, exactly.
Somebody that can relate to the parents.
I mean, it's good that we're having this discussion now, in preparations for budget cycles, but also that communication piece along this time. I think that, making sure that as we're thinking about, what a subscription looks like, what, equipment we're gonna need, we also need to make sure that our folks who are expected to be monitoring this are getting training. If there's any supports that, you talked about a wand. Does that mean that we need to purchase materials for our security department that's not part of our budget, or they don't have a budget themselves?
Sure.
So like, how does that get absorbed? So, I just want to make sure that we don't drop the ball. Like, this is a big consideration. I feel like with all of the issues that we've had, it would be supported. Just taking it step by step for any unintended consequences. I'm trying to be proactive and think about those things.
We've already started.
Way ahead, we've had
Yes.
to do,
Talk to the attorneys, what can we do, what can we not do? And I'm trying to think of some things we can even start this year. Just, I know we don't have these things in place, but what are some things we can start looking at to set ourselves up for success for next year?
And then the sustainability piece, like after the initial purchase, what else does it mean, like year two?
Yeah, so it's the kids' case, in perpetuity while they're at the high school. It's theirs. It's theirs to keep, they spill food on it, whatever, it's theirs. So they get it for the 4 years that they're there, kind of like a Chromebook. But we know they're gonna lose them. There's going to be, they break, things like that happen. So there's always a replacement, and then your incoming class. Plus just, if you're getting new kids, you have to have extras and things like that. So that would be the biggest factor every year. What's that?
Are they washable?
It's a good question. I don't know.
We can
Find out.
hopefully for.
I would think you'd get pretty. Smell pretty bad after. Yep.
Especially if we're talking about middle school kids too.
And the one thing.
So the idea would be like, if we were to include 6-12, it would be like, the middle school would own it for that time, and then they would get a new pouch when they.
Yeah, actually, like the kid doesn't even need to turn it, like, this is yours, you've got, you know, we would need to think about how replacements work.
Yeah.
There's these like ultra magnets at the exits.
Yeah.
You could put them on like carts, so you can wheel them in and out at the beginning and end of the day, so they don't get stolen or lost.
Yeah.
But the kid just puts the yonder pouch over it and it clicks, and then they open it up and they take their phone out and leave. So, you know, you could also, you'd have to strategize where you're gonna put these magnets, how many of them are you gonna get to make sure 600 kids can unclick their pouch pretty quickly at the end of the day, then they're moving off to sports, clubs, whatever they have.
Right, because the main vestibule here at least is smaller.
Right.
Yeah.
You can have them vary on different floors. You can, you know, you can have them stationary, you can have them on carts, you can have a mix of the two.
Okay, well, I don't want to waste too much time, but I do appreciate.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Couple more questions. Sorry. Expected, do we have any expected timing on when that state money might be available or?
I don't know, because I think it has to pass first, right? It's.
For next year, but it
I
sounds
think
like.
so. I think it has to-
Cost no matter what. It's
Right.
missed.
I read that like 13.5 million set aside. That seems to be the number I've heard a couple times. I don't know how true that is, but.
And then
Reimbursable.
Yeah,
correct, Stacy,
reimbursable,
if, yeah.
in general, obviously, I'm on board with this because I've already done it with my own kids.
Yeah.
But just things that I've known that they've had issues with, scanning and submitting documents for classes. I think we need to look at, is there something else we may need to purchase from a technology aspect,
Yeah.
especially at the high school,
Yeah.
where that's more prevalent, because I know my poor kid suffers when he has to do it.
Yeah.
Just thinks I'm like, oh.
It's a good
Impacts on quiet study, because I assume that's 98% of what kids do in quiet study right now is probably sit on their phone. And what goes along with that is, as they're gonna have to use and focus more on their Chromebooks, are we happy with where we're at with our filters and kids' abilities to work around it? So it's just that proactive type of approach.
Yeah.
I'd rather
Yep.
put the time into trying to figure that stuff out before instead of having to react.
Yeah, those are really good considerations. We have to think about those things.
Apple Watches work then.
All electronics.
Yeah, it's big enough to fit more than just the phone.
Okay.
So if you wear a wristwatch, smartwatch. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
So since we're on the topic, I just, Dr. Mundell is going to provide an update. We talked to you about a meeting with Ben Williams from the Connect Center. We've had 2 meetings so far. We're in very early stages. And then Laura, Tim, and I met, so there you go.
Thanks, Meg. And thanks, Laura. That was a very comprehensive presentation, a very comprehensive plan. And as Laura was talking about that, I'm reminded of a conversation that we had back in January when we did the trauma skilled schools presentation. And the thought there was a recognition that was a long-term program, a long-term effort to build the resiliency amongst our students so that they could overcome the various traumas that they've experienced in life. Obviously, the data that Laura presented tonight shows us clearly that the electronic devices have a traumatizing impact on kids going 2 ways, from the person who is sending the messages and the person who's receiving those messages. And so this plan strikes me as the intermediate kind of plan to address that source of trauma. And we want to share with you this evening that we have been in discussions with Ben Williams at Connect Center, and they have 2 very lively 1-hour conversations brainstorming about how we take care of some of our most chronic students who have real difficulties being in the general ed environment, and finding a quieter space for them and a program that might be more relevant to their interests and their skills and their lived experiences and specialized career pathways. And so at a very high level right now, we've done some brainstorming. There's a lot of resources at the Connect Center, mostly after-school resources. We've talked about a block schedule during the day. We've talked about how we might identify students from targeted grade levels to begin this process, and what the criteria might be for it. We don't want to just send behavioral students out of the building, but what interventions have we participated in, and how have they responded to those interventions? And when is the point where we would say, hey, here's an alternative program? I have had the opportunity as a high school principal to have an alternative program in my building. It operated from 3 to 6 p.m. in the evening. I'm not saying that that would be the case here. We've talked about a 5.5 or 6 hour a day, a little bit shortened and truncated, but more intense with academic engagement and relevant hands-on things. So those conversations are ongoing. We have another meeting next week, and I believe a team of us is going to go over and look at that facility so that we can picture things in that facility. And again, I think that would be, a more immediate approach to some of the issues that we've seen. We have this intermediate approach, and then we have this long-term systemic approach. So we're trying to look at this whole challenge right now as an opportunity to really meet kids where they are, where they're in a chronic situation, in a kind of receiving situation. If they have ambitions and want to be proactive, we're trying to give them the variety of resources that they will need to make progress in their own lives. And like Laura said, take charge of their own learning, take charge of their own mental health, take charge of their own well-being. So we'll be talking more about that as the next few weeks come along.
We've also had some conversations with Aaron Morris, one of our district attorneys, on, how could this happen in terms of, would it be both a lease agreement and a cooperative agreement? So she's doing some research. She's going to be getting back to us next week as well after the research and conversations around what certifications would be required, et cetera. But some more to follow. We'll lay it out in the plan. Wanted to make sure you knew that we were going forward with it as well.
I appreciate the update. It's, obviously we have been pushing and pushing just to find solutions. I like what you said as far as like, this is immediate, this is intermediate, this is, long-term, because it's important that we think about all these things. These are not new problems. These are problems that schools have had for years. The script changes, what the issues are or how they come about, that changes based on, societal influence and, whatever we're going through. But these are not real, super problems that nobody else is facing or that we haven't faced before. It's just that, trying to be intentional about being successful at it and not just, implementing something that is a flash in the pan that is good for today, but not going to work next year. It doesn't make any sense for us to continue down that path. And I say continue just because there have been so many solutions that have presented themselves in the past, which were, thoughtful ideas at the time, but just really didn't work. So taking the steps to make sure these conversations are in place, but also, to look at the progression long-term of where we need to be. I think it's important, and, we're going to keep pushing. Sorry.
It's okay, somebody has to.
Do we expect to have any sort of a budgetary answer by the time we have to?
We're trying real hard at
Couple
it.
days.
Just looking at the calendar.
Our meeting with Aaron Morris is the day before that, and we're working on some, maybe a little bit rough, but.
Imagine feeling nothing's free.
Stacy Mackey.
All right. Before I talk about everybody's favorite topic, the tax cap calculation, I'd just like to introduce Bill Darcy is with us today, our director of facilities.
Can we mention that every time he had tried to get here in the past, there was a flood or something else? So I'm glad
Yes.
well, no, he's here.
So, yeah, we made it. It was successful. So welcome, Bill. So the tax cap calculation, so the tax cap is a multi-step formula. It has several components. The allowable levy this year is 3.67% increase. It's $18.7 million. Some of the key factors is the tax base growth factor. So it's 1.0072. That's set by the Department of Taxation, and that's based off of our growth and our overall role over the past year. Another factor which everybody resonates with is the allowable growth factor, which is the lesser of CPI, or 2%. So initially, when it was introduced, everybody referred to it as a 2% tax cap. So that's where that comes from. This year, that is actually 2% because CPI is closer to 3%. It's just under 3%. There are no retirement exclusions in the current year. It would have to be a 2% growth in percentage for ERS or TRS, so there's no exclusion. We do have a modest increase in our pilot estimates. And allowable carryover. So last year, we went to 1%, and so we have 166,000 in carryover that we can put towards this current year, this current calculation. And then we have the capital exclusion, which is the net of your aid versus your debt service payment. So that's about 85,000. So that's what the calculation looks like. It's submitted to the Office of State Comptroller. It's due March 1st each year. And it's a big part of our revenue discussion. So it's about 34%. Our levy is about 34% of our overall revenue for the district. That is a significant improvement, and that is attributed to the state fully funding our foundation aid. So it used to be closer to 50-50 a few years ago. So that we're right-sized as far as I'm concerned with that improvement of the state aid funding. So that's a good part of the story. So I did a few scenarios on what the overall revenue would look like. I used a 1% increase, a 2% increase, and a 3% increase. With the cost and our current utilities and the growth in our contractual expenses, I wouldn't recommend a 0% increase in the current environment that we're in. We haven't started the budget discussions yet, but the needs assessments, there's a number of needs that have been demonstrated, and so 0% is not something that I would recommend. So we'll talk about it 1%. So these figures, the state aid and the building aid, are based off of the executive proposal. So these are estimates at this time. We will have our assembly member joining us next time we meet, and he'll give us an update on the state of the state. So these numbers could change. Ideally, they would. We're on the low percent as far as state aid. It's a 2% for foundation aid, so that's the low end. Most of our growth is attributed to the expense-driven aid, so our special programs, the excess cost aid categories for both private and public placements, as well as transportation aid. So that's where most of that 4.24% are coming from. Federal aid, we see a modest increase there. That is Medicaid reimbursement, so that's how we're trending for the current year. So I was confident bumping that figure up. 1% on the tax levy would be $181,000 increase. Assuming that there's no significant increase in our overall assessment roll, based off of a property of $150,000 assessed value, it would equal about $5 a month, 1%. That's what we would expect, assuming there's no significant changes to the assessment roll. Again, pilots are modest. Consumer utility taxes, again, that's based off a trend. We've seen some increases there. So I was comfortable bumping that up. And then same with our other, a good portion of that is actually interest, because we actually do have some money in our bank accounts. And so we're earning interest, which is new to us over the past couple of years. There's also some prior year refunds, but mainly that's attributed to we're earning real interest now at this rate. So that's great news. So that's assumption number one or scenario number one with a 1% increase. So the overall budget would be just under 2% increase. It would be 1.86%, and it would be a $995,000 increase. So scenario two is a 2% increase on the property tax levy. So that would equate to $362,000 in new revenue through taxation. It would be an overall budget increase of 2.2% and a $1.176 million increase overall. This would mean roughly a $7 increase for the same assumptions that I talked about on the previous slide. That's per month. And the last scenario, the 3%, a 3% increase would be $543,000 in new revenue. And it would be a roughly $10 increase per month with the same assumptions. The overall increase in the budget would be 2.5%, and it would be a $1.358 million increase year over year. I didn't do a scenario where we went up to the full. I can if you'd like.
No, you knew we weren't gonna go.
Right. I thought I'd leave it alone.
Listen, we hover around 1 or 2, that's.
Yeah.
So you need us to make a decision.
I do.
Yes. Do I have any thoughts or considerations from any members on the board?
I mean, I would love to do a 0%, because I would love to not see my taxes increase, but the 1% is agreeable.
I'm gonna go a little different, just because I think there's a lot of investments that we need to make.
I know.
And I think that with inflationary expenses, everyone's seeing different things, and I would be comfortable, I know it's probably not popular, but I would be comfortable at the 2, knowing that it's our kids and our teachers and our buildings that are gonna benefit from that. We're not really looking at those dollars and cents, it's still less than a trip to McDonald's a month, and I think that we have to take that into consideration.
I would agree with that.
Or with 2 as well.
I think 2 makes a lot of sense, especially having the conversations that we're having, talking about new initiatives that are not necessarily in our budget. There's a lot of unknowns, with mandates coming through. I would be comfortable at 2. 0's hard.
Yeah,
It's always
hard.
Times anything is always 0.
And we have to,
that
based on.
Then it puts us behind anywhere that we could recoup for years to come.
Yeah.
So 0 is tough, but I do understand what you're saying. I'm a taxpayer myself.
I mean, just, people have been hit hard the past couple of years, so, but.
I agree. I think it's also, we need to consider where we are in our negotiation process with our staff. We know that, we struggle with giving an affordable livable wage to folks and want to make sure that, we are staying, in a place where we want people to work for us. It's, retention is important, the cost of us constantly having to hire is, a burden. And so I think being thoughtful in at least thinking of the immediate future in next year can only just set us up for a better options moving forward. So sounds like 2. So that's $7.
$7 a month.
Okay.
2 cups of coffee.
This is Tarlo's data. She said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stacy, any other updates? Just a few items for me. Hot off the press with a call from Jeff our varsity girls bowling team won the Class B sectional title, so they're headed to the States. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to our boys who finished second yesterday as well. I want to update you on the Cohoes Middle School principal timeline. So the posting has already gone out. Level 1 screen interviews will be over the February break. Level 2 with an interview committee will be on or around March 4th. This is draft based on the pool responses and if we have to extend anything, but I just want to give you our thinking at the time. Level 3 performance tasks on or around March 11th with hopefully recommending the potential candidate at the March 19th board meeting. If anything does need to change, then the latest would be the board meeting and we will let you know. But this is our current thinking based on what we know at this time. I also wanted to say that Mary Beth, our communications specialist, is going to start adding a communications highlight to each board slide each month, just so we can see some of the key highlights that were communicated over the time in between. And, we can continue to expand this and provide other information based on your thoughts. I just wanted to share the initial slide with you. And as you can see, Jen Heaney, our new career coordinator, has really been very busy, acclimated wonderfully to her new role with career fairs, career week, and then today was an amazing event at the high school with financial literacy. And Laura, what do you have to share about that you heard today from someone?
I heard from, I forget her title, the leading lead from Broadview who was there today, that the students were some of the best behaved she's ever met in any school district she's been to. The staff were some of the most friendly and welcoming, that they felt that it was a huge success and that we loved it. I thank our board members who participated today. It was a great event and we heard a lot of funny comments from
Yes, I'm going to back her up because actually the woman from Broadview told me the same thing. She said that it was so much more organized. The kids were the best that they've seen. They really enjoyed their entire time there. And that was just in the morning. So that was just the first session that was there. And
the middle school came up. It was just really a great community event for the kids to get to see what spending is like as an adult. And
yeah,
you have to make, but they were great. And Jen Heaney is a rock star. She's been doing amazing work in this realm, whether it's mini career fairs, putting on this Broadview thing. She just makes it happen and she's super professional and willing to do anything to be asked. So really exciting.
yeah.
Really exciting.
And I have to say, I also participated in the career fair last Friday at CHS, which was very well run by Jen Heaney. She's doing a great job. She has outreach to all of the, companies and everything like that. She really is, taking this head on. I also want to compliment the administrators at the high school because I did work alongside a employee of the high school. And I just kind of said, how is it here? And he just said, it's wonderful. It's great. I love working here. The administrators are the best administrators that I've worked for. They're so involved. They really care about their jobs. They care about the kids and they really show that they want to be here. So I just wanted to share that with you too, because it was really nice to hear that, and I mean, he's a young person. He could be anywhere and he really, really enjoys being with you guys.
Yeah, thanks for sharing compliments all around.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then finally, the next slide in terms of upcoming events, as you can see, another busy Career Week, March 3rd, March 7th, all of our elementary schools, Career Week, same time. Great opportunity for our youngest students. So thank you.
So glad to see the career focus. I know that, this is a fairly new position to the district, but the push, I think Mr. Pascal would be very proud, very proud of you. So appreciate all the hard work everybody puts into that, because I do feel like that is the one thing that is going to, have students kind of invest in themselves is to see something that, might be within reach. Good. What's that? Okay. So we'll move on to the agenda portion of our meeting. Does the board have any items on tonight's agenda to discuss? First of all, I would like to, we're accepting the resignation of Mr. McFarland from the middle school. I'd like to thank him for his time here at Cohoes and all that he has brought to us. I know that we had talked a little bit about timeline. Some of those are obviously past the date of resignation for Mr. McFarland. And I don't know if you mentioned, I don't think you mentioned that the intent is to fill the position in an interim position to get through the remainder of the school year. Just, I didn't hear it, but making sure that we are all well aware that the middle school is not being left out on a lurch without any leadership or any assistance to find Mrs. Kelly sitting here. The other thing I wanted to just mention is we are accepting a number of retirees tonight for lots of big names and people who have committed a lot of time to our school district. And I just wanted to mention that before we actually voted on those retirements. Do we have any community discussion of agenda items?
I do have a couple of things. Elaine Toledo, and also of those schools. Couple comments. I just want to thank the board for very thoughtful deliberating about the budget. Again, I as an employee and as a taxpayer, those are hard decisions to make. So I do appreciate you guys making those hard decisions and thinking about the benefits to the staff and the students. The other comment I want to make is thanking the team that went to Troy, considering the secondary aspect of these plans and programs, because you're right, things do start here and it does make it easier. Like when you said that having siblings. My question is somewhat related to that. I know Mr. Mandela talked about the Connect Center, but I wasn't sure. I didn't really hear if that was also a secondary program or if that was just a high school related situation you guys are thinking about for the next Center piece. So that was the
I think there's space to think about it in a secondary concept. So that will evolve over the next couple of weeks as we zero in on what the profile of the student who ends up there is and where they may be in the system at this point in time.
Just real quick to an earlier discussion about the paving, building the whole parking area in the high school. Just want to add, I met with facilities last year, and I believe traffic commissioner, traffic director, traffic something from the city of Cohoes. And they shared with us that we as a district, because we are in school district property, can select, adopt, and install our own signage that would assist us with traffic flow issues in the high school. Meaning if we want to make space one way, if we want to put, do not enter, staff only around, but we have that freedom as a school board and a school district to determine with the help of facilities what that signage would look like. Because one of the struggles has been to change that. That setup is very expensive and it's very difficult given limited space, which has led to limited parking in the front of that building when you have consideration of tractor trailers and things getting in and out of the back lot. So I think no matter what happens, we should be working with Bill Garcia and working with the city on what sort of signage we can put up to help just enforce some of the traffic issues that we've seen there. And so maybe that's something that could be discussed at a future meeting, and that we could try to do in tandem with whatever milling and paving work is done this summer. So when school gets back into session in this fall, it's not as challenging of an issue.
Mr. Darcy, call Laura.
I mean, at least I think some of us were gonna reach out and see what, like, like I said, not to say that I'm trying to bring up issues that aren't issues, but, I myself have traveled that path and it's a challenge. So.
I do remember that, though. It was discussed at one of the facilities meetings. Yes,
The state-
definitely.
Actually, the safety, it was the safety.
Oh, maybe the safety
It was a
meeting that we
committee.
had,
And-
talking about making that one way from, 7 AM to 4 PM or something like that.
It's probably the only thing I wasn't sad about giving up when my kids graduated.
Any other comments? Old business, I just wanted to mention that we had a discussion about accessibility for community members to the indoor track. So wanted to.
Yeah, I had a discussion just recently about filling the 6 to 7 time slot with safety officers. I'll have the answer for that tomorrow. As you know, our new safety officer started and is there from 8 to 9. So as long as that's favorable, we do still need to firm up the cost. I think it would be prorated for this year because it's a short amount, just a couple of months. So we're still talking about that, but we're thinking about something nominal, 15, 20 to cover the cost of, having the badge, et cetera, but as a service to the community. So I'll provide that information in the update after I hear back tomorrow about the coverage. And then can share the communication and work with Mary Beth for the end of the week and early next to get the communication.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So can I get a motion that the Board of Education adopt the following resolutions of the February 12th, 2025 agenda, 6A through I, 7A through Q, and 9A?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Geller?
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder? Mrs. Gendron?
Yes.
Mrs. Paradis?
Yes.
Mr. Juros?
Yes.
And Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
So with that, I also would like to recognize and thank Mr. McFarland for his service. And I do want to thank our staff who have retired. Terry Gendron, longtime PE teacher and teacher leader at Cohoes Middle School. Christine Guarneri, reading teacher, Harmony Hill. Lynn Hunter and Terry Broomhead, teacher assistants at the middle school. I've had the privilege and pleasure of working with all of them for many years. Thank you for your service to our students, and you will be greatly missed.
Thank you. I just also wanted to recognize that we just accepted a donation in the amount of $102.42 from Plan Sports to the Cohoes High School to be used for athletics. So we thank them very much for their donation. Are there any comments from the Board of Education members on anything not related to the agenda? I just wanted to mention that we did have a brief meeting at City Hall, which Ms. O'Shea and I were in attendance for, mostly to discuss our budget implications moving forward. There was one thing that was brought to our attention, and that is going to be like increases kind of across the board for some of the services that the city provides to us. We are in agreements with them for some of our support pieces, our check-in or handle with care program, some of our nighttime events due to their contractual changes also then, increases what we would contribute. So just wanted to let you know that was part of the conversation and during budget deliberations, those items might show a little bit higher cost than in the past. Are there any comments from the audience on anything else? Okay, so dates for future meetings, March 5th and 19th, right here at Cohoes Middle School Library at 6 PM. Can I get a motion to enter into executive session at 7:46 PM to discuss matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation, and to discuss the superintendent's evaluation?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Geller,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder, Mrs. Gendron,
Yes.
Mrs. Paradis,
Yes.
Mr. Drost.
Yes.
And Mr. Jackson.
Yes.
Thank you all for coming. We do not plan on returning. Appreciate your input. We'll see you next time.